Great. Fresh back from his adventures in Southern California as he covers all the teams. Our very own and the Athletics' own Sam Amick. Good morning, Sam.
Good morning, gentlemen. I'm actually embarking on phase 2 of the Southern California adventures. I was in L.A. earlier in the week. Arrived in San Diego, so still going here.
What's down there?
Yeah, what's in San Diego?
The Nuggets. Yeah, maybe the Anchorman, too. Nuggets training camp, and then the T-Wolves are coming through later in the week. They have a preseason game on Saturday, so I'll be getting a little double dip action with those two teams. So it should be good.
How did Denver pick? I mean, I know teams pick different spots. So Denver picked San Diego, which is a phenomenal place. Any connections to that or just getting out of Denver?
There is, I believe, a Josh Kroenke connection to one of the universities, if I have that correct. Hopefully my bosses aren't listening. I've had a tremendous run these past 2 years of basically waiting to see which teams are going to come to San Diego, and then, finding some excuse to get down there. It's actually great. Like a couple of years back, it was Nuggets, Nuggets, Nets, and Bucks. Like all three teams were in San Diego. But as far as the stuff we talk about in the job, and it's great kind of relationship time with people are, around these teams that are hard to get at in their home cities. And yes, it's not a bad thing that you have beautiful weather and a little bit of beach.
Whenever we have you on, Sam, the one thing we don't ever do is be like, hey, Sam, you should write this. But
is today the day?
Well, here's my pitch. Here's my elevator pitch on the phone. How about with all of the issues with the Kings, their culture, the ins and outs, the back and forth, all the stuff going on. What a great way to demonstrate to the rest of the NBA potential free agents, people that we don't exactly have the best reputation here as a franchise. How about establishing, at least for a year, maybe more, how about establishing a training camp as other teams have in Maui every year?
First of all, I love the we part of it. I didn't know your paychecks came from the Kings.
They don't. People think they do, but they don't. Yeah. It's the royal we.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah.
I had to let that.
I know. We isn't yes.
Yeah, teams do go to various parts of Hawaii, including the Warriors, the Clippers. So it's not a bad idea. Honestly, maybe my favorite training camp road trip of all time, and certainly now even a little more meaning considering the tragedy of his death, was Kobe's last camp with the Lakers was on Oahu. And, it's good, whether it's Hawaii or San Diego. The idea for these teams certainly is to force the players, it's like forced family fun when it comes to the group. And it does get you away a bit. And honestly, for the higher profile teams, this doesn't obviously, doesn't apply to the Kings, but it's a way to kind of escape the media masses because traditionally you're going to have fewer people making the trip. But I do see a lot of sense for any team and doing stuff like this. It sets a great tone as you go into a 6 or 7 month journey.
Sam Amick joining us from The Athletic. Sam, about this time last week, I think you had mentioned in The Athletic that, look, the Kings and Kaminga were still a possibility. It kind of quieted down, and now maybe it was something that was peaking back up. Now, since then, obviously, the Warriors have signed the deal with him. What's kind of, where did it maybe slip, or how close was it to maybe even becoming a thing again between the Kings and Kuminga?
Yeah, I don't, and I don't have total clarity on this. I did get a sense of the end in terms of there was, even beyond the stuff I reported, there was some communication that continued from there, both between the Kings and the Warriors and also between the Kings and Jonathan's camp. And, a sense that they were trying to get something done. There was even from Kuminga's camp, pretty late in the process, indication that he was thinking about maybe holding out, and trying to get some assurances from the Kings that, can you kind of promise that you're going to come get him later in the season if he held out for a while, and that was too much for them to commit to. Just too many variables, really. That's the reason he's not on the Kings. And I don't believe that they relented on the first-round draft pick requests or considerations in terms of, taking off those protections. And I chatted about this yesterday with someone who was saying that, I know it's not really fulfilling for the fans to not get the guy that you're going for, and you don't get that dopamine hit, so to speak. But, it does show, I think, some prudence and some patience and a lack of kind of impulse that has dogged this team in the past. And so they can take another run at him in January and February. He's eligible to be traded in mid-January. Almost certainly is going to be traded. And so we'll see what happens down the road.
So how does Kaminga go back now after all that? I mean, we've seen it before. That's fine. But it certainly doesn't seem like the happy ending. Hey, that's just business, negotiations. I'm happy to be here. Good Lord willing, help the ball club. I mean, does that have the potential? We have seen before there, and obviously this is an incredibly different situation, but I'm old enough to remember a time when a player on the Warriors got punched and then came back to the team, and that ended up being a thing, and he ended up being gone. This is a business punch, if you will. Can Kuminga integrate himself back into the Warriors, and do you think the Warriors are going to try to make him happy at the beginning of the year?
I chuckled at how you framed it, Dave. I thought maybe you were trying to say that, Draymond rolls up on him on day.
Maybe.
Just do not hold out that long ever again. Oh, I feel like we lost Sam.
I think we completely did.
Wow,
he did not like that.
He didn't like the way I framed that at all.
Yeah, you caught that, framed it.
Yeah.
And he left. He exited.
Golly, I'm just trying to. It's just an analogy, dude.
Or Draymond got him.
Yeah, or was Draymond spied? That's a great point. Waiting for Ryan on the chat now to be, if you had the proper phones.
It's coming.
It's coming. Yeah. Hello. Sam Amick back with us now. So, Sam, we have a theory. Was Draymond behind you when you said that?
I know. I don't know where I left. First, I didn't get the laugh I was going for. That, I was like, damn, I thought that was pretty good.
No, we laughed. We 100% laughed, and then all of a sudden you were gone. Jason goes, was Draymond maybe behind him?
Yeah, I got choked out. No, but I was going on to say that I don't think it will be a problem, honestly, because of two things. Jonathan's personality, I don't know him well, but everybody who does know him well says, he's got a sweetness to him. He's wildly competitive and super confident, but he's not kind of capable of going full Jimmy Butler, nor does he have the stature to go full Jimmy Butler from the Minnesota-Miami chapters. And, even if he's a little salty, I'm not trying to be blunt or disrespectful. Like, just because we talked about him all summer long does not mean he's the type of guy that can – they can kind of sway a locker room. He's not that guy. And the Warriors have, a bunch of future Hall of Famers who, my God, their average age in the starting five is 36 years old. So I think the basketball stuff is the more of a challenge. Is they really, because of their age, and hopefully I'm coming through, it's loud here.
Yes.
Because of their age, the irony is they kind of really need Kaminga for the first half of the season. The perfect strategy would be, let him cook a little bit, even with the imperfect fit and some of the stylistic things that drive them crazy about his game. But from a load management standpoint for the older guys, Jonathan is part of the solution. And, so maybe that satiates. That could be a win-win, right? Because he gets a little bit of what he wants at times. And then, you can showcase him as you get closer to the deadline, too.
Real quick update, Jason, because I know people are waiting on this. Adam Bona, that's the name, with an alley-oop dunk. Sixers take a 7 2 lead on the Knicks in the Abu Dhabi games. We have actual preseason basketball going on as we speak. What does this mean for the Knicks? And is Mike Brown already on the hot seat? We'll talk about that later. Back to you.
I'm surprised Sam's not there.
Right?
I'm more just wondering where Abu Dhabi is. That was a hell of a pronunciation on your part.
Thank you. Abu Dhabi. The board game I used to play as a kid.
Sam, on the same side of, feelings and emotions and all this, Malik Monk, I know, said, I guess, the right things the other day at Media Day. He's still a King. He was listed in those rumors. How do you think that impacts him and kind of his Kings relationship?
I've watched his comments. He seems fine. And, it is funny that a lot of these guys, if you think about the conversations we had in April and May about this team and the discussion about, and we can just be real about it, like, is Sabonis going to ask for a trade? Are they going to move DeMar? Can they move Zach? Is Malik going to be part of something? I feel like, to the players' credit, and honestly, to the new, front office's credit too, I think Scott Perry and his group have done a good job of, like, being very direct with these guys and businesslike and professional, and it seems like getting them on board with the idea that, yeah, sure, guys, in a perfect world, you could argue that none of you would be here. This is not your basketball utopia, but you're still in a good spot in the NBA, and we're trying to make something work, and then we'll see what happens down the road. Malik's part of that, and it seems like he's decided to just go ahead and compete and do his thing and go from there. And, Doug Christie early on, I know it's the season for optimism, but it seems like Doug's had a good connection with those guys too, and got them in a good place. Just a matter of, how are they going to play together?
True or false, if the Kings actually could trade these people, there'd be at least 2, if not perhaps 3 starters already gone.
Yeah, no, that's true.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to – sorry, I hit the mute button. It's hard to, without knowing what they get in return, that's a half, half of the conversation. But, I mean, yeah, like Zach comes to mind, right? Like, everybody's clear-eyed about the fact that, his contract for now is pretty much immovable. And so it doesn't behoove him or them to pout about it. They should try to find a way to work together. Domas is a different situation. It feels like it's just a matter of, okay, what can they build for now with him as a centerpiece and go from there. But the day could come where they shift on that strategy. And DeMar is interesting, and I'm actually really curious to see what happens there, because it's like the league last year in terms of his market. It felt like they didn't believe his production enough to have there be a robust market for him among the contenders, because you kind of thought he might have gotten moved to a team that, even the Warriors or the Lakers, like teams that need another scorer. But if he talked this at Media Day about having a really good offseason. It seems like he's pretty hardcore about having another really productive year. So I could see DeMar having a market. But again, I do think the thing that Scott has accomplished already and will probably continue is just like making the message be that none of this stuff is personal. And I know that sounds obvious, but there's a lot of front offices that don't do that, and they kind of bungle it when it comes to whether you call it EQ or just managing people. And it seems like that part's going pretty well.
Speaking of market, what's the market for Westbrook these days? He was rumored with the Kings, maybe a few other teams. When Van Vliet gets hurt, hey, maybe the Rockets will go back at him. What's his market value like right now?
I don't really know who else is contemplating Russ other than the Kings, and I do still think he's on their radar. And the way it has been put to me is if they come off another guard, then Russ could be a possibility, and I can see that happening later in the year. It's crazy because he had some really good moments with Denver, but here I am in San Diego, and harsh truth, for Nuggets training camp, and the harsh truth is that, like, their lack of desire to bring him back is absolutely an indictment of, I mean, he can get mad all he wants about the way he gets discussed, but this is now 3 teams in a row that have chosen not to bring him back. Now, the Kings thing, and I've had conversations with them about this. Like, it sounds like the veterans on this team would love to play with him and have been giving a thumbs up on that front. And so it wouldn't surprise me to see it happen down the road. I also noticed the other day, and hopefully I didn't fact check this, but that Russ is not that far from becoming the highest scoring point guard of all time, which if you're him and you've already had a pretty accomplished career, I'm sure that's something he wouldn't mind, kind of adding another notch in the belt. But all that being said, like, man, he had some really good moments basketball wise with Denver. And he is a guy who, when he's in a good headspace can, show young guys about work ethic and competitiveness and things of that nature.
Sam Amick joining us. The thing that gets me about the Russ thing, and I know this is a GM question, but Kings still have their full mid-level exception left that they're saving for Russ. And I know they wanted to, clear out the backcourt, do something. The Kaminga trade would have done that. So now they're just chilling with a $15 million MLE or somewhere in that neighborhood. And one of the things is they don't really have a true blue power forward. So is your best guess they just sit on that until something comes up?
It is. I think everything's got to get viewed through the books.
Mm-hmm.
They're trying to be nimble and they don't want to be in the tax. And, that's, I think, the sense I get is that because it's weird because they're like, I've been struck by the level of, call it optimism or, ambitiousness when they actually discuss this current team, with no moves being made at all. So it's not, I'm not trying to send a message to the fans. I think they're legitimately trying to compete and make the playoffs this year.
Of course they are.
But in terms of roster construction, it does seem like there is there's a sense that, like, we're not going into the tax for this team. Like, not only for the money reasons, but for, just the fact that every time you check in that box of being in the tax, you are that much closer to a repeater tax down the road. All the different considerations. So, I don't have their books in front of me, but I know they are looking at things through that lens.
Is that for you, Sam? Because I think Dave and I have talked about this, about just we can see individual talent on this team, but the roster construction just seems it's a bit odd. I mean, where they are with some talented veterans, some young guys in the mix, but no real identifiable young guy to build upon. Is that kind of the nature you see it as they begin this season, just kind of an odd mix of some talent, but who knows how it's all going to work?
Yeah, it is. I mean, at the risk of sounding naive, the fun part of this time of year is that, part of our job, a big part, is to talk to these different teams, find out, okay, how do you see your team? What's the vision? And then in terms of reporting, it's enjoyable because you get to go, okay, like in January and February, we get to look back on these conversations and see if they were, kind of foretelling the future or just, not reading the room the right way.
Yeah.
So to your question, I mean, for one, Dennis Schroeder is a massive X factor where, for all the criticism they've taken about kind of, reuniting Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan from the Chicago Bulls days, there's a logic with Dennis where it's like, all right, listen, those two guys, Zach and DeMar, were never better in Chicago than when Lonzo Ball was actually healthy and helping be the glue between them, and to be up-tempo and a two-way guard leading the way. So Dennis, the vision is that, like, all the other time when they didn't have somebody like that, you got a lesser version of those other two guys. So it's convincing those two guys to let Dennis run the team in that way. It's a lot of Zach in particular getting off the ball, slashing, easy buckets, and that being a pressure release from a usage standpoint on the fact that you have Dennis, you got Domas, even Malik, who are going to need and want the ball. So offensively, they have a game plan that I can see it on paper, but it takes a lot of buy-in. It takes a pretty amount, significant amount of sacrifice, and it takes teaching old dogs a couple of new tricks. So we'll see if that works. And then on the defensive side, and I chatted with Doug about this recently, where it's like I see his vision, but if you go through their top six, there's really only Dennis Schroeder and Keegan Murray are the only players with any defensive credentials in that group. So that's an uphill climb to get guys to compete. The last thought there is that I think where I could see it a little bit in terms of them being competitive is their depth and they have a pretty dynamic group. If you just talk about playmaking, scoring, being a threat, and the depth that they do have, and this is a reach, obviously, but like the Pacers and Thunder finals were just an absolute masterclass in, playing 9 and 10 man rotations and having a bit of an egalitarian approach offensively. And when you had Tyrese Halliburton on the floor and players like that, like not everybody is a all defensive player, but everybody was competing. So that's a little bit of the blueprint or the model they're going after, and we'll see if they can do it.
Such a journalist word, egalitarian. I love that. Sam, joining us live from San Diego down at the Athletic and or covering the team for the Athletic. Good to have you back, even though I think you were only gone like 3 separate weeks since the off season. But
you guys put me through the off season program this year.
We did.
We really did.
We have high hopes for you this year.
Yeah, we really do, Sam. Honestly, this is a make or break year. It's a contract year for you, and we expect a ton out of you. And you always bring it. So have fun down there. Go have a something with a something, and hurry home. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, y'all. Talk to you soon.
Take care. Egalitarian.
Have a something with a something.
So you tell me the 32-year-old who's on his 12th team, whose assist total last year would have been 4th on the league or 4th on the team, is the X factor.
Yeah,
I'm ready. And you know what? I think he'll have a career year. We'll take a break when we come.